G'day. Welcome to Crystal Clear Mathematics, where it is easier than you think. I'm Graham Henderson. We're going to learn to add numbers, or at least add measurements, in the British and the American Imperial weight system. The reason I'm choosing this is partly just from sheer historical interest, and partly because it gives us yet another opportunity to learn to add things that use place value or column notation. And this is the basis, of course, of our decimal number system as well. So we get to see the principles of how our decimal number system works in quite a different system. Now, I'm fully aware that almost everyone in the world uses the metric system now. So what I'm showing you is in a sense archaic, but it is modern because it's used in the United States still, and some of its trading partners or partners that used to be territories or protectorates of the United States. And the British imperial system is still used in Myanmar or Burma, and perhaps somewhere else, I'm not sure, but certainly in Burma. They're both based on this unit, the pound. Now, the pound was used back in the days of the Roman Empire, and the Romans divided it into 12. They used the word uncia or uncia to indicate that. We use the word ounce. And in the days of the Romans, there were 12 ounces to a pound. Now, I'm sure if you know this system, you're saying, oh, but there are 16 ounces to the pound. That is true for reasons I'll explain in a moment, but the original ounce was 1/12 of a pound, and this is still true of the troy weight system that's used to measure precious metals and gems. Although the pound is hardly used, if at all, nowadays, in fact, I think it's illegal, mostly when you're measuring gems and precious metals, you talk in terms of ounces or smaller quantities. And the troy system did have 12 ounces to a pound. The symbols we use are LB for pound. This is because the Romans used the name Libra for weights. Those of you who are interested in the zodiac will know that one of the signs of the zodiac is Libra, the scales. And this is the exact word that is used for the pound by the Romans in the Roman Empire. We use the symbol OZ for ounce. Comes from the Italian, I think, onza or something like that. But they're the symbols that we use. Now, at the other end of the scale, both the American and the British imperial systems used a hundredweight. Which in its early days used to be 100 pounds. That's what its definition was. And so much so that it was sometimes called a centum weight or a centum weight. The word centum in Latin meant 100. So it was literally 100 weight, 100 of these. It's because of centum weight that we get the symbol CWT, the abbreviation. So if you didn't know where it came from, now you do. And the larger weight was called a ton. It's spelled T-O-N but pronounced ton. And it was based on, in the Middle Ages in England, on the biggest keg that was used to brew beer and wine and things like that. It was a monster, a huge keg, and it weighed pretty much what we nowadays call a ton. The keg itself was called a ton keg, a T-U-N, and that was its weight. Both pronounced ton. And its symbol was just a T. So we have a ton with its symbol a T, the hundredweight with a symbol CWT, a pound with this, and an ounce with OZ. And there are 12 ounces to a pound. Sorry, we'll correct that in just a moment. There are supposed to be 100 pounds to a hundredweight, and a ton was 20 hundredweight. That much stayed consistent. The weights of these varied a bit during the Middle Ages, and there was a refinement occurred around 1300 in England. You've got to remember that the Norman conquest of England took place in 1066, and within a couple of centuries the Norman weight system was brought over to England and standardised, and that was what we call the system of voie du poids. Avoir, to have, poids, weights. These are the weights of goods, basically, things you get or things you trade. And these were weights that were used in the trading marketplace, particularly for buying and selling, in England, for buying and selling wool, which was a commodity that was traded quite a lot. Now, the problem in England was that there was another weight related to one used in the Roman Empire called a stone. Its symbol, ST. Now, the stone literally was a stone. I've got pictures I'm going to put up here of two of them, or two pictures at least, neither of which came from England, I believe, but they show the kinds of stones involved. They had hooks or rings in, and they were hooked or looped onto the pair of scales to weigh wool or whatever commodity was being weighed. They came in many weights and sizes, and it actually wasn't until the early 1800s, quite recently, that the stone was standardised as 14 pounds, 14 of these. By the way, I've jumped ahead of myself now. Going back to 1300, it was when the system of voie du poids was established and brought in by the Normans into England that we ended up with 16 ounces to the pound. This was a system from France, and for trading purposes it superseded the 12 ounces to the pound that the Roman Empire had. Now, the British had a problem. The hundredweight was 100 of these, but they wanted the stones to go evenly into this figure, and 14 does not go into 100 evenly. So they made an adjustment, and the adjustment was to make this 8 stone, which was 112 pound. And that's why we got a very unusual figure. It's because the English wanted to insert the stone as part of this system of weights and measures. In the United States, this never got established. It was never actually adopted. So in the United States, their hundredweight is still 100 pounds. And obviously if you have 20 of these to make a ton, then in the United States a ton is 2,000 pound. In England, however, because their hundredweight is a bit bigger, the ton is 20 of these, which makes it 2,240 pound in the United Kingdom. These are referred to, they're both called a ton, and you can imagine the confusion it caused in trade. This became known as the short ton, and this became known as the long ton. And of course, this was the long hundredweight, and the American 100 pounds was the short hundredweight. And that's how they distinguish between the two of them. What a crazy system. But this is what was inherited over many, many years of fiddling around with different weights and measures. I haven't introduced all of them. There were quarters and ounces were divided into lots of little bits as well, and goodness, the list goes on. But this is what we've established, and this is what we're going to use to do our adding. I'm going to use the British system with the stones in place first because it gives us more variety, and I might do one more addition afterwards with the American system. By the way, when I was at school, we used to have football teams that were weighed. They'd be known as the 6 stone 7 pound team. These were boys who were between 5 stone 7 and 6 stone 7. There'd be the 7 stone 7 and the 8 stone 7 and so forth. In America, you don't hear stones used to refer to human weight. Consequently, if you're watching American movies or if you live in the United States, you'll talk about people who weigh 100 pound or 140 pound or 200 pound. There's no such thing as stone and pounds. It's very common in the United Kingdom and Australia to refer to someone as weighing 12 stone or 15 stone or 10 stone or something like that. Not in the United States. Anyway, let's make a couple of weights to add. Let's imagine we have 5 tons. Sorry, I am going to add one last thing. In the metric system, we don't have a ton, we have a thing called a ton. Also with the symbol T. Now this is a bit confusing. The ton is 1,000 kilograms. And since each kilogram is about 2.2 pounds, the ton is about 2,200. It's just over, I think it's about 2,208 pound, but I'll call it 2,200 pounds approximately. And this is pronounced ton as opposed to the ton. And you can see that a ton, a metric ton, is very, very close. It's only a few pounds away from the United Kingdom long ton, but it's significantly different from the United States short ton. I should mention that in case you're doing conversions. Anyway, I hope that will rub off fairly nicely. Let's get back to our addition. We're going to add 5 tons. I better mark this off so it doesn't get too clumsy. Hundredweight, let's have 13 hundredweight, 6 stone, 7 pound and 8 ounces. And we're going to add 7 tons. I'm trying to make sure that I add up to something that will carry. So let's make this 800 weight and 5 stone, 9 pound and 11 ounces. So this is what we're going to add. I'll change to red. And if you've seen a previous video, you know what's coming. But we need 16 of these to make 1 pound. This is our conversion. Unlike the decimal system that uses 10, 10, 10, 10, or the Babylonian that uses 60, 60, 60, this changes column after column. So 16 ounces make the pound. I need 14 of these, 14 pounds to make a stone. I need 8 of these stone to make a hundredweight, and I need 20 of these hundredweight to make a ton. So let's go. 8 plus 11 is 19. So we have 19 ounces. But a bundle of 16 ounces makes a pound. So if we take 16 of these, we get 1 pound that we put in the pounds column so we can keep track of it. And when we've taken that 16 out of the 19, it leaves 3 left. So we have 3 ounces remaining. Now here we have 10 and 7 is 17. in the pounds column. But we have another measure, certainly in the British imperial system, called the stone, which is equal to 14 pounds. So we take 14 of these and make 1 stone, take away 14, leaves 3. 6 and 5 and 1 is 12. And we have 12 stone, but every 8 of them makes a hundredweight. So if I take 8 of these, I get 1 hundredweight in this column. And once I've removed those 8, I'm left with 4. So I'm left with 4 stone. In the hundredweights column, I have 13 and 8 is 21, and 1 is 22. But 20 hundredweight makes a ton. So if I take 20 of those hundredweight, I get 1 ton, and I'm left with 2 hundredweight. And these add up to 5 and 7 is 12, and 1 is 13. So I'm left with 13 ton, 2 hundredweight, 4 stone, 3 pound, and 3 ounces. And that's the way addition is done in the British weight system. Mind you, in England now, in Britain now, the metric system has been adopted for quite some time, but there are still a lot of people who remember this and still use it occasionally in their daily lives. It's quite common even in Australia, for example, when a baby is born, to hear its length in centimetres and its weight given in grams, but then the person will say, oh, but it's a 7 pound 1 ounce baby, or something like that. So some people will give the metric and the imperial measures of babies' birth weights. I'll just erase this and we'll do a calculation quickly with the American system, and then we'll call that quits. So here we have 2 weights in the American system. Notice that I have now eliminated the stone, and the American system is going to have the hundredweight equal to 100 pounds, which is the way it was originally meant to be. So let's add them up using this system. 9 and 12 is 21, but we remember that 21 ounces, that's what we have in the ounces column, 16 of them will make a pound, same as the British system. So we take 16 of these and make 1 pound, and if we remove 16 from here, we have 5 ounces. I'll put the OZ straight away. If I add these, notice these numbers are substantially bigger because I have to reach 100 before I move to the hundredweights column. Now if I add these together, 1 and 29 is 30, and 93 is 123. Now 100 pound makes a hundredweight. So I put 100 weight here, remove 100 of these because they've gone over to this column, and I'm left with 23 pound. Here I'm left with 26 hundredweight, but 20 of them will make a ton. So I take 20 of these across, becoming 1 ton, remove those 20, I'm left with 6 hundredweight, and here I'm left with 6, and 1 is 7, and 7 is 14 tons. Remember, these are short. That is American hundredweight and American tons. Now, of course, in the real world, no one, even in the imperial system, or very few people ever added things with this kind of range. Measuring tons of things down to ounces and calculating this way was very rare, but I haven't done that for this reason. I've not done it for authenticity. I've done it so that we can see how columns behave when we add. But there it is, a little bit of history, a little bit of understanding of where our measurements came from, now drifting rapidly into the past. If the United States ever decides to convert and Burma decides to convert, we'll have a world that's entirely metric, which will make trade a little bit simpler. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, then please click the like button. If you have a comment to share, whether it's positive or negative, but certainly constructive, I really would appreciate your feedback, so please add that in the comments section below. And of course, if you're not already a subscriber, please click on the subscribe button and join. I look forward to offering you more videos in the future, and thank you very much for watching.